Today is an opportunity to throw in shade to actually articulate through the subject matter what I try to make this podcast all about. Here's the thing, that shade is a real thing for all of us. And this mosaic of our humanity is what makes us strong. It's what brings color and texture to our lives. Viva la différence, as they would say in France. So these differences we have, and we try to make sure here that people don't miss or dismiss any of the differences because of what they mean to each and every one of us. And so today we get to talk about shade in sort of a different context. I call it Candice, Meghan, and the Queen. And the reason I say that, the sweet spot, and you've all seen the story, Meghan Markle's interview, so the sweet spot seems to be this concern that was heard about the shade of Andrew's son, Archie. But Candice injects herself in because she is never one to miss an opportunity to be relevant. And so she says that Meghan is too light, shade, to have suffered any real racism. And the Queen remains silent, hoping that the real issue that is kind of the underpinning of all of this is never revealed. So she's okay with the conversation going back and forth between Meghan and Candice if people overlook the thing that no one is talking about. So here's what happens. Candice says the quiet part out loud. In the Black community, there has always been a problem with shade. Many of us, unfortunately, sort of relegate people within our community based on, oftentimes, how dark or how light their complexion might be. But Candice saying the quiet part out loud, the problem is that she really doesn't have any authority, because while she may be a part of our community, she does not have comity. In other words, there is not a commonness between us and her issues. As a matter of fact, one could say that Candice gets paid for making the dominant culture comfortable with the pain they inflict on the Black community. And so when she begins to speak to an issue like this, she just doesn't have any credibility. I will say this, she and Meghan do have one thing in common, but that's a conversation for another day. Which brings us to the real issue. The conversation on the sides about Archie's shade and racism in Britain aren't really what Queen Elizabeth is trying to avoid, in my opinion. What she really wants to avoid is the deeper issue of Queen Charlotte. Now, Queen Charlotte, and there have been movies made about her, so it's somewhat fairly commonly known. Queen Charlotte would be Queen Elizabeth's great-great-great-great-grandmother. And she was, by the old terms, in the old days, they said mulatto, which is a term of derision. By today's terms, she was biracial. She was about the shade of Meghan Markle. Now, here's the important thing, though, that Charlotte had 15 children, which means that every branch of royalty has the blood of Charlotte in its veins. Every person, every one of them in Buckingham Palace, in any degree, is in some way a descendant of this Black woman, Queen Charlotte. So the fear is, and so now I have to give the Queen credit. At her coronation, she acknowledged not just Queen Charlotte, but also Dido, who was of Asian descent, who was also part of the British family tree. So she acknowledged her African and Asian connections, but that was 2 or 3 decades ago, since she is being coronated. What has happened since then is an attempt by the British press to whitewash all of Britain's royalty, the fear being that this association that people have, that somehow African descent is beneath the crown, that it would somehow compromise. So the blood of Charlotte runs through every line, the entire vein of British royalty.